McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. Tender, juicy, and its own sauce. Would you look at that? Well, you can't see it, but trust me, it looks delicious. New McCrispy strips, now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 183 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibster, how are you?
I'm doing good, man.
Well, it's always good to hear.
Yeah. Well,
man.
Yeah, Twitter account got hacked, but outside of that.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you did have some Twitter problems.
I did.
They were sending out some very strange things that did not look like it would come from you, and we know it didn't.
Right.
So you have a new Twitter.
I do.
That people can find just by searching True Crime Gibby. It'll still come up.
Yeah, you'll find me there.
Sad that people have to resort to things like that.
Yeah.
Just can't leave well enough alone. Hackers, whoever it is.
Just to sell some unis.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Or unis.
Get your unis or whatever.
We don't know. We continue to see some great Patreon support, Gibbs. Let's give some shout outs. We had Kyle Clapper.
The inventor of the clap on, clap off.
Nadine Carter.
What's up, Nadine?
Emma.
Hey, Emma.
Juliana Davis.
Well, thank you, Juliana.
Amandy Lai.
Well, hey, Amandy.
Christina Malls.
Christina.
Rhea.
Hey, Rhea.
Woozler.
What's up, Woozler?
Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Terry Ardea.
Hey, Ardea.
Natalie Cabral.
What's up, Cabral?
Rebecca.
Hey, Rebecca.
Maggie Bullock.
Well, thank you, good old Maggie May.
Old.
Maggie May, is that the song? Maggie May?
Maggie May.
Yeah.
Jennifer Fossum.
Hey, Fossum.
Lily Martinez.
Well, thank you, Lily.
Alexis Rossico.
Ooh, Roscoe.
Nope, but good. Close.
Yeah.
Tim Smith.
This is a tough one here. Tim?
Can you get that one?
Yeah.
Billy Turner.
What's going on, Billy?
Mary Donnelly.
Hey, thank you, Mary.
Katie McElhaney.
What's up, McElhaney?
Carol Fairbairn.
Thank you, Carol.
Allison Farn.
Hey, Allison.
Michael Brody.
Hey, thank you, Michael.
Emily Perrette.
Well, thank you, Perrette.
Marie Ross.
Well, hi, Marie.
Jessica Bruner.
What's going on, Jessica?
And last but not least, Caitlin.
Oh, there's Caitlin.
Then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Riley Jackson.
Well, thank you, Riley.
So we appreciate all the new Patreon support, the continued Patreon support. We had some great PayPal donations from Angie Stevenson.
Thank you, Angie.
Marion Kahn.
What's going on, Marion?
Stephen Kessler.
Thank you, Stephen.
And Teresa Summers.
What's going on, Teresa?
So Gibbs, right now, we have an episode out on TCAT.
Yeah.
We're talking about Daniel LaPlante. Man, teenager up in Massachusetts committed a brutal triple homicide.
It's a rough one.
Yeah, it was rough. You know, murder of a mother and her two young children. The mother was also pregnant.
Right.
So, but you know, it's a case about evidence and testimony from this guy's family that really kind of points the finger at him. To me, it's an interesting case. I think people will like it.
I enjoyed it.
We also have a Q&A audio and video coming out soon on Patreon. So that'll be fun. If you're not a Patreon supporter, right now is a great time to sign up. There's a lot of really good content on there.
And I'll try to use my Samuel L. Jackson voice because I know Siri. Now with Siri, you can choose Samuel L. Jackson to be that voice.
Oh, you can?
Yeah. So I was going to.
Does he say all the cuss words like he does in the Quentin Tarantino movie?
Yeah, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? I love that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do it. We'll do it. But there's a lot of good stuff out there, including, what do we have now? 27, 28 full episodes?
Yeah.
Patreon.
All those little fun ones in between.
And we do something every week. All right, man. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We're talking about the 1980 unsolved disappearances and murders of Vickie Stout and her half-sister, Carla Atkins, were headed to Tennessee. It was in the fall of 1980. The two half-sisters were abducted and then later found brutally murdered several miles from their home. The victim's family and community have never recovered from the sheer raw brutality of the murders. Margie Stout Atkins had 8 children between 2 fathers. She had 4 boys and 4 girls.
It's a lot of kids.
It is a lot of kids. It's very Brady Bunch-like.
Yeah.
Her first husband, Leland Stout, was killed by his friend in Texas in 1965 because, according to the friend, Leland refused to stop singing during the night while staying over at this guy's apartment. He kept him awake. So the friend walked over and stabbed him repeatedly and then went back to sleep.
You know, there's been many times I stayed at people's houses or they stayed at my house. And yeah, I can see where maybe, you know, it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. You just want to go to sleep. But they're doing something that irritates you. But I've never said, man, I'm going to go grab my kitchen knife and just kill you to make you be quiet.
And then I'm just going to go back to sleep as though nothing happened.
Yeah. It's just, you know,
well,
so strange.
And this wasn't a stranger, right? These guys were portrayed as good friends.
Yeah.
You know, can't you just give the guy a break a little bit? I get it. He's getting on your nerves, but
kick him out, man. Say, go. You got to go.
Well, and what I found strange was, you know, there's not even a fight. Can we fight first?
Yeah.
No, we're just going straight to stabbing.
Done. And I got to get back in bed. I'm tired, man.
Margie would later marry William Atkins and have several children with him over the following years and have additional children with him. But William and Margie eventually went their separate ways, and all 8 children stayed with her. Margie and the children lived in a mobile home off Highway 76 in the small Tennessee town of Dover. Dover's located in Stewart County. It's very small, Gibbs. We're talking about 1,500 residents or so.
That's really small.
That's like your apartment complex.
Exactly. Yeah, I think kind of close.
You're got a small city going there.
Yeah.
Dover is about 60 miles northwest of Nashville, pretty close to Clarksville, which we've featured on a couple of our unsolved episodes. I will say this. That mobile home, Gibbs, had to be pretty cramped with 9 people inside. I'm just thinking about 4 girls.
Yeah.
I have 2 girls.
Right.
Who have to share a bathroom. And on some days, it seems as though I'm like a UN peacekeeper trying to separate them and prevent an all-out, full-scale World War III.
Man, just try to imagine 9 people having to use, I don't know if there's 1 or 2 bathrooms in this place, but even with 2.
Yeah, even with enough.
2. Not with 9.
But the one thing I will say, in the reporting, it seemed as though this was a happy family, you know, making their life in Dover. Sometimes the older children needed to get out of the mobile home, get some time away. I understand that, right? The little kids maybe get on your nerves from time to time.
Right.
Much like your friend who is singing at night. Well, let's not stab your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Take a walk, cool off, get some peace and quiet. A lot of times they would walk up the highway to the local convenience store. 16-year-old Vickie Lee Stout and her 14-year-old half-sister, Carla Sue Atkins, they were more like best friends.
They really were. Very close.
I mean, they were half-sisters, but I think, you know, from everything that I read, they really were like BFFs. They did everything together.
Just like you and I.
Exactly. We're BFFs. Vickie attended Stewart County High School, and Carla attended the Dover Elementary School. And really, they couldn't wait to see each other after school, have long weekends together along with their other siblings. The girls were just 2 fun-loving girls who enjoyed being teenagers, and they enjoyed being with each other. I think that part is really clear.
Yeah.
On September 17th, 1980, Vickie and Carla wanted to get some candy and snacks for them and their siblings to have after school that day. Shortly after they got off the school bus, the two girls walked about a half mile down Highway 79 to the local convenience store known as the Furnace. Seems like a strange name for a convenience store.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I don't think it was anywhere near what most people would think of as a convenience store. It was a store, but it was also a restaurant. You could also get some bait, some tackle.
Well, sometimes that's all you need, some bait and tackle.
Sometimes that's where you get your best food too.
Absolutely.
Some of those little hole in the wall type places that you wouldn't think, oh man, I bet you they had good biscuits and gravy.
Make some good sandwiches there.
Now I'm getting hungry.
Now you're getting hungry.
According to the clerk that day, the sisters arrived at the store at 3:15 p.m. and they looked around a bit before purchasing some gum and crackers. The girls were seen around 3:30 p.m. by a passerby who said they saw the girls walking towards their mobile home. Another person said he saw the girls get into an older blue pickup truck. And a blue pickup truck with the same description was seen at the convenience store around the same time that the girls were there. That would be the last time anyone saw the two girls alive. When Vickie and Carla didn't return home, Margie called the Stewart Sheriff's Department early that evening about her two daughters not returning home. Sheriff investigators talked to the clerk and told Margie, let us wait to see if they return later that night or the next morning. You know, they probably ran into some friends, time got away from them. Let's just see how it goes.
I always find it interesting that sometimes authorities feel like they know your kids better than you do, right? Because if I felt that maybe my kids ran into somebody,
you wouldn't call the police.
I wouldn't call the police. I mean, if I'm calling the police, it's because I already thought that.
And I need help. Yeah, but I've already made the decision I need help. I get it. And I know this has come up on a number of the unsolved episodes that we do. It's 1980.
Right.
And, you know, again, when we say back in the day or that was a different time, when it came to that, it really was a different time.
Yeah, the sense of urgency was really not there yet.
No, it really wasn't. So it does not surprise me that in 1980, the authorities would say, you know what, let's just wait and see.
Yeah. Because
we've seen it time and time again in stories from that same time frame. Then the next day, when the two failed to return home, the sheriff told Margie that the girls had run away. And again, let's give it some time, because he said most runaways return home after a short period of time. Now, the one suggestion that he did make was for Margie to make a list of people that the girls may visit or, you know, possibly could have stayed with for a short period of time.
Yeah, and put together also another list of if the girls could live anywhere, where would that be? Because maybe that's where they headed.
Yeah, he wanted a list of places that they could possibly have traveled to. That way the sheriff and his department could make some calls to different municipalities.
Yeah, hey, you know, keep an eye out. If you see, you know, these girls, give us a call.
Margie Atkins was adamant that her girls would never run off like this. First of all, they would never leave their siblings behind. But again, Gibbs, as we've talked about, we know from other disappearances we've covered that this was kind of the thinking of law enforcement back then in many jurisdictions. I won't say all, but I think what it did, right, in this case and some of the other cases we covered, it delayed search efforts. You know, if you've got a mindset of let's wait and see,
right?
Well, that means you're not setting certain things in motion, right? There's not going to be some big significant search for the girls. There's not going to be a helicopter in the sky. No search dogs, no divers in the ponds, really no major organized effort by law enforcement or the community. And I think that's key too, because a lot of times you'll have that kind of equal part law enforcement, community effort. Everybody's working together to do some searching. In this case, that's not going to happen at all during the first 2 weeks.
And I'm guessing it's not like the mom had the resources. I mean, raising 9 kids in a...
No, I think that's a fair point. I doubt she had the resources to hire her own PI.
Right.
Or, something to that effect. I always look at it as she did what she was supposed to do, right? She called law enforcement and said, I have a problem. Here's what my problem is. My daughters are missing. Please help me.
Right.
Well, 2 weeks went by and there was no help. It was after this 2-week period that the sheriff's department realized, all right, these girls, they didn't have any money. They didn't take any extra clothes, and not one relative or friend has called to say that the girls are with them.
So this is their big Sherlock moment.
Yeah. 2 weeks in, the light bulb goes off and they start to think, oh, something has happened to these girls. They're missing.
Yeah. Maybe we had this wrong.
So at this point, they're thinking, okay, it's possible the girls were abducted that day, and maybe the driver of that blue pickup truck that an eyewitness saw the girls climb into could have possibly have had something to do with it, could possibly even have information that would help them find the girls.
Yeah. Like
either way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the problem. And it's the problem in many of these cases. By the time that authorities have their light bulb moment that, oh, these girls probably are really missing, it's too late. Because just 18 days after the girls disappeared, this was Sunday, October 5th, around 4 p.m., a couple who was hiking in an area known as Lost Creek, a wooded area in the land between the lakes.
It's like a TVA recreation area. A lot of campers like to hang out there.
Yeah, they smelled a foul, pungent odor. So they walked into this densely wooded area where they thought the odor was coming from, and they found a dead, decomposing body that appeared to them to be female. The body was in a very shallow grave and covered with 2 logs, some branches, and leaves. So this would be a find for anybody. I mean, it would be a shock. And it was for these hikers. They took off to seek help. They walked to the nearest phone and they called the sheriff.
Yeah, that had to be shocking to stumble across that. But I don't know if you could ever get rid of that vision, let alone remembering that smell.
Oh, that's a great point. Most people who have smelled death say, number one, it's unmistakable. And number two, it's kind of hard to get rid of.
Right.
Either literally or in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, when you smell something that bad, and we've all smelled really bad things in our life, how it kind of stays with you?
Yeah.
Like you think it's in your nose still.
Yeah, I share a studio with you.
Oh, wow.
After Chilly Thursdays.
Hey, Chilly Thursday's a pretty good day.
But yeah, I mean, it's rough. And then just the sight of that, I would think bad dreams, visions, that would be a little haunting for many people.
Yeah. For me, it would be.
Once on site, the sheriff's department examined the scene and they found another dead female body lying in a similar shallow grave covered with 2 logs, branches, and leaves. It was about 30 yards from where the hikers found the first body. Both bodies were fully clothed and the victims were lying on their backs. Investigators on site told the press that they believed these were the missing girls, but an official announcement would not come until after the autopsies were completed. Now, investigators did say that if this was Vickie and Carla, they theorized that the killer had picked the 2 girls up and drove them about 8 miles to this location and forced them to walk into the dense woods. They went on to say that they were most likely sexually assaulted, but this was pure speculation, Gibbs, early on. Only a completed autopsy would be able to confirm that. They were making assumptions to the press. Now, they were theorizing about the sexual assault, but what they knew for sure was that both girls were murdered in the woods, and most likely they were murdered the day they went missing.
And I think we hear that a lot in these abductions, disappearances, that they're murdered pretty quickly within a day or two from being taken.
Well, if you think about it, these really bad people that commit the crimes that you and I talk about, most of them are not people that would keep someone in their house or chained up or something like that. They're committing a very bad, violent act, but they also want to get away. So they're doing it within a pretty short period of time and then getting away from that victim, that scene, or, all of that.
Yeah. I think it's because, they have that urge to do whatever they need to do. And by the time they get the victim, like they want to act on that right then.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, there are some people that part of their urge is to control, to keep.
Right.
But I don't think that's the majority. I think the majority of perpetrators do what you're saying. So investigators were, telling the press these things, their assumptions, what they knew. Well, the press wanted to know how the investigators knew that the girls were murdered at that site in the woods. Investigators said it was based on some things they had seen at the site, but they didn't go into details. They told the press that it was too gruesome to mention. The sheriff told the press that both bodies were moved to the state examiner's office in Memphis for autopsies. But as often happens, Gibbs, journalists find a way, to find out the information that maybe investigators don't really want them to know.
They can be persistent.
And it really didn't take them long to find out that both girls were shot in the head with a shotgun at close range. One of the girls was standing when she was shot because investigators found some of her hair, scalp, and brain matter about 7 feet up in the tree that was above the girl's body.
Gruesome.
Well, investigators said, hey, we don't want to tell you this stuff because it's too gruesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty gruesome.
That is.
Now, my thought was that we don't want to tell you this stuff because we don't want it out to the public so that when we question our suspects, we've got some of that information in our back pocket.
Right.
That's what I thought the reason would be.
I feel the same way. Plus, I feel like I don't want it out there yet because I don't want their mother to find it out either this way. How horrific would that be to hear? It's going to be bad to hear that your daughter's died, period, but to tell they died from a shotgun blast to the face or to the head or whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking tough enough for an investigator, a sheriff to have to make the drive to the parents' house and explain what they found and exactly what happened, but much worse for them to open the paper the next morning and read about it at the same time that the rest of the town is finding out.
Right.
That would be horrible. That's something you do not want. Along with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, the Sheriff's Department took charge of this double murder investigation. The autopsy results were kept under wrap. During the initial investigation, the girls' bodies were released shortly after the autopsy to the family, and a funeral service was held at the Anglin Funeral Home. Both girls were buried side by side at the Standing Rock Cemetery, where they share a headstone. About 100 people, friends and family, attended the service that day. Meanwhile, investigators were trying to hunt down the owner of this blue pickup truck. that some eyewitnesses had seen at the convenience store, and one person said picked up the girls. The investigators looked into the girls' past. They also looked into the parents' past to try to figure out if there was anyone who would have wanted to harm these two girls. But really, they were unable to develop any good leads. They questioned locals about anything they had seen in the days leading up to the murders and in the days after. But again, they just had trouble developing any solid leads.
Yeah, I don't think they just couldn't gather any information that was helpful to the case.
About 3 weeks after the bodies were discovered, the TBI and the sheriff's department conducted another search of the murder site. They would have loved to have done it earlier, but they couldn't. There was heavy rains, and the steep inclines near the bodies were extremely muddy. But once the rains subsided, the investigators brought in search dogs trained in locating specific types of evidence. And Gibbs, this is amazing. You and I talked about it on our TCAT episode this week.
We did.
The dogs dug up 2 shotgun shells, and they also located additional fragments of the girls' bodies.
And to me, it's amazing that these dogs can do that kind of stuff.
It is. I mean, it's all in the training, but you think, wow, how do you do that? How much work has to go in to train these dogs? It must be an immense amount of work.
Right.
Now, from my understanding, it also takes the right kind of dog, right? I don't think you can just take any dog and teach them how to dig up shotgun shells.
I mean, I know like you have problems just smelling your jockeys to figure out if they're clean or not.
Sure.
Like, I don't know.
My dog, and speaking of my dog, does nothing. Literally cannot be trained to do hardly anything.
Just
now,
stays there.
maybe Caesar or whatever that guy's name, the dog whisperer,
Oh, yeah.
can do it, but
Maybe.
I certainly haven't been able to.
No. Well, maybe the dog takes after, its owner.
Its owner. In early January 1981, the official autopsy report was released. It stated that the girls' bodies were too badly decomposed to determine if they had been sexually assaulted. It also stated that both victims died from a shotgun blast to their heads. Carla had been shot in the back of her head, but Vickie had been shot in her face. The weapon was a 12-gauge shotgun. And for me, Gibbs, as a guy that, owns shotguns, owns a number of guns,
right.
A shotgun blast to the face or the back of the head from a 12-gauge shotgun at very close range is unbelievably devastating. Now, I don't know that from personal experience,
Right.
but I have shot enough things like a watermelon sitting on top of a post or, something like that. You shoot it with, let's say, a 9mm pistol. Okay. It may explode. The bullet might just go right through.
Right.
If you're standing up close to a watermelon with a shotgun, you won't find that watermelon.
Right.
Most likely. It will almost be disintegrated.
It's a lot of force coming out of a gun.
Yeah, it's just an unbelievable amount of damage done at close range. Now, when you stand back
Right.
20, 25 yards, things change.
Sure.
Doesn't mean it's not lethal. It doesn't mean, bad things won't happen, but it's just the way that a shotgun shell is designed. The closer you are,
The heavier the concentration.
oh my gosh, just the damage is unbelievable. So the autopsy report was made public, but again, it didn't really lead to any new developments or leads coming into the sheriff or the TBI. Around this time, the governor of Tennessee offered a $2,500 reward for information leading to the killer's arrest. Some investigators theorized that Vickie and Carla were picked up by someone they knew as they were walking home. That someone was driving a blue truck. The suspect persuaded them to go with him to the secluded spot. And really, investigators said, this was a spot that probably only locals would know about.
Yeah, I would think so, knowing that you'd have to turn down this old logging road.
It was pretty remote.
Yeah.
But it was at this spot where this person tried to sexually assault one or both of the girls. And then during the assault, there was some sort of struggle. One of the girls was shot. And then they theorized that the second girl was shot because she would have been a witness to the crime. The TBI and Sheriff's Department investigated 24 persons of interest, including some potential suspects in Clarksville, Tennessee.
But we know there's been plenty of crimes over there in Clarksville. We've had plenty of unsolved, based around that military base for some small rural areas, right? Clarksville.
Seems like a lot.
It does seem like a lot happening in that area.
Yeah, and maybe it's just because we've looked at it.
Right.
Maybe it's not a lot. Maybe it's normal, but it does seem that way.
It sure does.
Investigators also looked at a serial rapist in Paris, Tennessee, but nothing further came from any of these investigations into these persons of interest. Some of the victims' family members felt that the Stewart County Sheriff's Department, they just weren't pursuing all of the leads that they could. And some mentioned to the press that the sheriff knew who committed the murders, but was not going after them.
It's a pretty bold statement to make.
I think it is. I mean, you are essentially calling out the sheriff, not just for not doing his job. You're saying that he's covering for this murder.
Right.
That's a pretty bold statement. But when this occurred in the 1980s, it wasn't just the family saying this. There was quite a few locals who were saying that the sheriff's office was just too close to this case to solve it. It seemed to me, Gibbs, from the research, that many people in this community had a good deal of mistrust with the sheriff's department during the initial years of the investigation.
And that had to hamper the investigation because the locals weren't going to come to you to tell you anything if they don't trust you. Why would they? They're probably concerned that maybe what they say to you could be used against them.
Well, yeah, if there's a real level of mistrust with the authorities, then there would be a reticence to come forward with information because you don't know how that information is going to be used.
Right.
Maybe it's going to be sat on, maybe it's going to be silenced, or maybe it's going to be twisted and bent, and they're going to use it against you or someone you know, or who knows?
Right, yeah.
But I agree with you that that level of mistrust cannot be good for an investigation. So the investigation into the murders of Vickie and Carla went cold. And eventually the Stewart County Sheriff's Office handed the case over to the TBI for them to take the lead and also to store all of the forensic evidence collected at the murder scene, as well as all physical evidence they had recovered. But according to some close to the case, the TBI over the years has lost or ruined some of the stored evidence by not preserving it correctly. I don't know how much of that is true, but you kind of see quite a bit of that in the research. People saying that's the case.
Maybe in the earlier years, that could have been a possibility.
After several years of no activity in the case, there was really no movement. The family and the local community began holding yearly vigils to drive attention to the unsolved murders. During these vigils, they asked the FBI to join the TBI to help investigate these murders. They also attempted to get many of the national TV investigative shows to showcase the girls' murders in hopes that it would help the case get moving.
Well, we've seen in the past, sometimes that works, right?
Yeah. America's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
Shows like that.
Dateline.
Sure.
Yeah.
They have produced leads. They've solved cases. The one thing I know for sure is that nothing bad can happen from profiling a case, getting that information out there.
Right.
Now, Is it always going to help solve a case? No. But what harm does it do? It might jog someone's memory.
Right.
It might embolden someone to come forward.
I don't think you have to worry about overexposure.
No. If anything, you want as much exposure as you can get.
Yeah.
The problem that they had was that they couldn't get anybody to do it.
Well, you know, from researching this with me, there's just not a lot of information.
No. And I think that's probably one of the big reasons why none of the big shows picked this case up and ran with it. It's a tough one because, as you just said, the information on it is very limited. Also, a number of years have gone past, and many of the original investigators are either dead or retired. So what do you have? With no new leads being developed, no new persons of interest, really what you have is the same notes that investigators started with, have worked with, over the years. But you're completely right. I mean, we've started down the road of researching an episode only to get halfway or even more into it and decided we don't have enough.
Yeah, just kind of drops off.
Yeah. And so that happens with Unsolved quite a bit. Sometimes we might have to profile a second case to make an entire episode. And to me, that's kind of sad because, you'll look at certain cases and they're covered extensively. Other cases that are just as gruesome, just as baffling, don't receive hardly any coverage. Now, it could be the area, big city versus small town. There's a lot of different factors that go into why some cases receive more coverage than others.
For sure.
In 2015, the Stewart County District Attorney also began publicly asking the FBI to assist with this investigation. And it was just a few weeks after this, the TBI released some sketches of the man they believed had been driving the blue pickup truck that night. They had 3 sketches in total. One depicting what he may have looked like in 1980, and 2 others showing what he may have looked like as he aged over the years. The following year in 2016, the governor of Tennessee raised the then $2,500 reward up to $5,000 for information that led to an arrest of the murderer. I thought about this when we first mentioned the $2,500. I mean, any reward is good, but you would kind of think Gibbs as a state could do better than $2,500 and maybe even $5,000. Or just a local business would kick in, or someone.
I thought between the state, the city, the county, like you said, local businesses, that they at least come up with, 15, 20.
50.
Yeah.
Well, you and I have talked about the amounts and what it does in terms of enticing people to come forward. If you're asking someone to rat on a family member or a good friend, and maybe rat's not the right word, but it kind of is. You're asking them to divulge information that's going to put a loved one or a close friend away. $2,500 is not going to cut it.
No,
most people are not going to take that kind of chance for $2,500. Now, there might be some that will. But if you're talking 50,000, doesn't the likelihood go up exponentially that someone now with knowledge may be willing to come forward?
Well, exactly. And that's not paid until they have a conviction.
Yeah, they just don't pay it out to anybody that calls in.
Yeah,
so.
But you're going to get all those calls that you have to weed out. And within those calls, you might pick up some tidbits that could, generate a potential lead too.
Yeah, or at least get you in the right direction. It might not be the one that leads to the arrest, but it might be something that kickstarts something. Yeah, I had that kind of thinking at 2,500. I have the same thinking at 5,000. So many years have gone by, right? Since the murders of Vickie and Carla, the community and the family wanted to know what the TBI was doing, especially as it related to evidence collected that may contain DNA.
Well, as you know, with all these advancements in today's DNA world, why wouldn't you want to process it?
Yeah, there's no doubt. 1980, no DNA. Nobody knew what it was, right? I think it really kind of started being used in a limited fashion in 85, give or take.
Right.
So investigators working this case in 1980 had no clue about DNA or anything to do with it. But as you get into 2016, 2017, not only was DNA being used in cases all over the world, like you said, there had been so many advancements that they were now able to do things with smaller samples, genetic testing, all kinds of different things. But according to the research, the family had no knowledge of whether the TBI had processed anything to do with DNA, had run comparisons, even had samples. They just didn't know. And I get where they're coming from. Okay, if you haven't done it yet, why not do it?
Yeah.
The case is 40 years old.
Not getting younger.
No, it's not getting younger. Witnesses are dying. Suspects are dying. That happens. As cases get older and older, it's time to get some answers. So the family and the community continued to push for the TBI to release some of the DNA to a private lab. And as of the time that this episode is airing, just last week, the TBI announced that it has agreed to allow some DNA samples in this case to be sent to an independent lab. So there's some hope there, Gibbs, that maybe something will come from this effort. I think, Gibbs, there are a lot of factors that go into whether or not this will be successful. I mean, you have to wonder about the quality of the samples. They're 40 years old now. We don't know exactly how they were handled. Some people have said, well, they may not have been handled very well during those 40 years, but who knows? We have seen some cases solved that many people thought, it's so old, they'll never solve it.
Right.
And I think in this day and age, you can't use the word never anymore, especially if you have any type of DNA. There will always be a chance.
Right.
And this technology is advancing to the point where it's almost like every year you have more and more chances.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's just getting that much better.
So as we wrap up this episode, there has been a push by family members and the community to get the government to reopen the old logging road and the area where the girls were murdered. They want to make it a memorial site in honor of the two sisters. But the government has kept this area closed and off limits for the last 40 years.
Look, I think they should open it up. I think they should allow the family to go in there. And if they want to make a memorial, let them make a memorial. It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah, I don't see what it could hurt.
I mean, it's been 40 years.
A vigil is scheduled to be held on October 4th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Stewart County Visitor Center to mark the 40th anniversary of the sisters' murder. So if people are listening to this on Sunday night, if it goes off as scheduled, it happened earlier the day that this episode aired.
Yeah. Hopefully everything goes well.
But like we said, this case remains unsolved. Anyone with information is asked to call the TBI. They want the public's assistance in locating the individual believed to have been driving that blue truck. They want any public assistance they can get in trying to solve this case. So whether someone has information about who might have been driving the blue truck, who's pictured in the composite sketches, or any other information they believe may help, you should contact the TBI at 1-800-TBI-FIND, F-I-N-D. That's it, Gibbs. That's it for the unsolved murders of Vickie Stout and Carla Atkins. We got some voicemails. You want to check them out?
Let's hear.
Hi, it's Emily Lucas again from Indianapolis. What's up? Hope y'all are staying safe, keeping your head on a swivel. I'm just listening to Patreon because, I'm cheap, but after about 3 years, I was like, I probably should just go ahead and pay the freaking $2 to listen to more episodes. I just sound really cheap just there. Sorry. I'm sorry. I still love y'all, but I'm poor. I'm just listening to your Patreon episode now, and I had to stop because, Gibby, you are killing me with this, my strange addiction with the car. Oh, my gosh. I will never forget that episode. Be careful with that rum there, bud. Don't be spitting it all over your computer. Once I'm not so cheap here soon, have a little bit of a bonus coming. I'm going to send you guys some more money and send you some more rum. So I hope you guys have a good night. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your own time ticking. And keep drinking. Don't drive, though. Love you. Bye.
All right. So she's talking about our recent Patreon episode. Gibby talked about a show called My Strange Addiction where a man made love to his car, I believe.
Yeah.
I did a spit take.
You did. You spit.
It's all caught on video.
Pretty funny.
Hey fellas, my name is Mindy from Cincinnati. Love your show. I also want to say I am both team Mike and Gibby because honestly, it's a package deal. And to have one without the other, well, that just means it's only half as good. So, yes. Anyway, I'm not sure if you've heard of the case of Elizabeth Andes. I think it's Andes. The last name, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but Elizabeth Andes, she was murdered in 1978, and she was a student at Miami University, so extremely local. Her boyfriend was a suspect for quite a long time, but nobody was actually convicted of her murder. The podcast Accused, I'm not sure if you've heard of that one, did a season about it and would love, but I would love to hear you guys talk about it for your Unsolved. That would be awesome. But anyways, thanks guys. Keep up the good work and stay awesome. Bye.
Yeah, that case sounds so familiar, Gibbs. At first, I thought maybe we had done it on Unsolved, but I don't think we did. Morph and I may have covered it in an older episode of Criminology because the case sounds so familiar. Miami University is not too far from us, and I kind of remember it. But we'll have to check on it.
Yeah,
be a good case for Unsolved.
Definitely check it out.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. My name is Amy, and I'm out of Oregon. And I just wanted to call and say that your podcast has got me through not only COVID, but the horrible fires that are raging all around us. So I just wanted to reach out and say thank you so much for that. And also say that I am Team Gibby and Team Fergie. I can't pick one of you. I love you both so much. I also have a crime suggestion, which is a terrible case in Oregon City of Ward Weaver. So if you don't have him on your list, you should probably check it out. It's really a despicable case, though. I'm warning you. And it's very nearby where I used to take my children to soccer camp, which is also very scary. So have a great day and keep your own time. Bye, guys.
All right. We appreciate that. We hope you're doing well out there and staying safe. We actually did Ward Weaver. This is a voicemail that probably should have gone on TCAP, but we did do Ward Weaver. I want to say, Gibbs, it was about 5 or 6 months ago, which would mean it's in the 170s to early 180s. Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to it, check it out.
Hey, real quick. I know we get this question quite frequently. The older Unsolved episodes. Again, if they're 6 months or older, they're going to be out on Stitcher Premium. You can go to Stitcher Premium. I believe you can sign up for a 30-day free trial.
Yeah, they have a 30-day free trial.
Yeah, so check them out, but that's where you need to go. Stitcher Premium, and you can find the older Unsolved episodes there, as well as some of the criminology stuff, too.
Yeah, older criminology's on there as well, and a bunch of other podcasts. All right, Gibbs, that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.